I don't play much RPG Maker games as much as I used to, but after finishing Rakuen, I knew that I had to talk about it in a video. If you're familiar with To the Moon, then this might interest you since they're both narrative-driven games. Though Rakuen has heavy moments, I thought the game was a mostly charming experience. What made the emotional parts more emotional was the soundtrack, since the developer, Laura Shigihara, actually worked on To the Moon's music as well. I think I started tearing up in most scenes just because of the songs that were playing. So yeah, the soundtrack is that good. Putting the tissues aside, let's get into the video. The story is about a boy who's staying at a hospital ward. Every time his mother visits, she reads a storybook called Rakuen to him. It doesn't take long for his mom to reveal that the world in the book actually exists. Eventually, he discovers a door that leads to the magical land, Morizora's forest. He enters it with his mom, hoping to ask the guardian for one wish, but before his wish can be granted, he needs to help 5 people who happen to be patients from his hospital. What makes it interesting is that Morizora's forest is actually connected to the real world. Whatever happens in one place has an effect on the other, and the same goes for the characters. The hospital patients have an alternate version of themselves in Morizora's forest, so the boy ends up meeting them there. He helps them with their problems, and in the process, he slowly learns about their lives. Before I get into the gameplay, I just wanted to talk about how pretty Rakuen looks. The first thing that stood out to me when I played this game were the character portraits. I liked the art style for the humans and other creatures, and I really appreciated how there were different expressions for most characters. The environmental art was also really good, especially when I was exploring Morizora's forest. There was a lot of detail put into the forest itself, and the interior design of houses and other buildings. Each area does a great job of giving off a different feel to it, with the most striking difference being between the real world and the fantasy one. The hospital has a limited color scheme, so the whole place was kind of cold and depressing at times. I remember when I first stepped into Morizora's forest, it felt like a breath of fresh air because everything was just so much brighter and colorful. Since this is a story-heavy RPG Maker title with no combat, the gameplay is really simple. Most of it is spent solving puzzles, like pushing crates and figuring out how to drain water from a flooded cave. When it comes to tasks, they're mostly fetch quests, so you'll need to help someone find what they're looking for, like tools or other items. Every time you progress through the game, you gain access to previously closed-off areas in both Morizora's forest and the hospital. That's all I can really talk about since a lot of your playtime is also spent walking and doing a lot of backtracking. I do feel like the game would be much shorter if it didn't have puzzles along the way, since the gameplay just serves as a way to space things out in between each story arc, which is why the next best thing about Rakuen is the characters. Throughout the course of your playthrough, you get to learn about each patient in the boy's hospital floor. They're all going through their own battles, like a man who's suffering from what seems to be dementia, and a husband who's waiting for his comatose wife to wake up. But my personal favorite is this little girl who keeps a marble collection. She says that all her marbles are actually little planets that have their own world. Like one planet has cats and dogs living together, while another one is a giant toy store. She always talked about each marble with so much passion and detail. It was really cute to listen to. There's a lot of charming moments like this in the game, but most of it is in Morizora's forest. There were so many adorable characters there, from talking plants to monkey-like villagers. Even when they have little to say, they were all fun to talk to. I gotta give some credit to the characters in the hospital though. Even with the depressing atmosphere of the place, they did their best to keep a positive attitude up. The only character that kind of bothered me was the boy's mom. Almost everything is witnessed by her in the story. She follows him through most of your playtime, giving her thoughts and a few hints when you choose to talk to her. The problem is she doesn't really do or say much. She rarely reacted to all the fantasy stuff going on in the game. Like, she would just say the same thing or talk about a subject that's unrelated to what's going on. Eventually, I just kinda stopped checking up on her. I think I only started caring about her towards the end of the game, but that's all I can say about that, for obvious reasons. Overall, I think Rakuen is a good game. The pacing was kinda slow at times, and there were puzzles that really dragged on, but thankfully the game focused more on its story the deeper I got into it. It took me around 7 to 8 hours to beat the game, which is a little on the short side because I pulled up a guide every time I got stuck. As much as I want to talk about the more mysterious aspects of the story, I think it's best experienced when you don't know as much. If you're looking for a different kind of RPG that's sure to pull your heartstrings, then Rakuen might be for you. Let me know what you thought about the video. It was kinda refreshing playing Rakuen, mostly because I only play horror games, at least back then. As for a mini channel update, well, not really an update. No promises, but I'll see if I can play more games and upload a little more frequently. Apex Legends and real life is just really taking over me right now. The only thing I can do is minimize the Apex part. Anyway, I hope you're doing great, and yeah. Stick around for more, I guess. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.